Hi church, how are you? Today we're going to launch our 5-week sermon series on the topic of relationships. You know, good relationships are God's gift to us. For it is in a good relationship we experience love, forgiveness, acceptance, laughter. You and I are created for relationships. We are created to flourish in a loving relationship. You heard the saying, no man is an island. That's why today, straight off the bat, I want to talk about how to resolve conflict. You see, conflict is the beginning of a broken relationship if we do not handle it well. Now, there are many benefits if you can handle conflict well. Number one, you get to sleep better, your health will be better, and guess what? It will actually save you money too. If you don't believe me, ask any lawyers that deal with family conflict or commercial conflict. Now, more so, it is also the command of God for us to settle our differences with our brothers or our sisters as fast as possible. So today, we're going to talk about how to resolve conflict. Now, there are two parts to this sermon. First, I want to run through God's way, some principles in how we can deal with conflict. And the second part, I want to then talk about different conflict operational styles that you and I may have. So right now, let's go straight to what does God has to say about how to resolve a conflict. Now, first thing first, God wants us to resolve conflict quickly. Now, in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26, it says, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold." If it's possible, we should resolve our conflict as soon as possible. This is the command of God. There's no point letting the issue hang over your head. And the Bible says, do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. It's so important for us to settle our differences as fast as possible. And please do not carry your anger to your bed. That is unhealthy and it's not good for you. Now, secondly, we are to handle our conflict on a face-to-face basis. Now, in Matthew chapter 18, verse 15. In Matthew chapter 18, verse 15, this is what it says. "If your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault just between the two of you. If he listens to you, you have won your brother over." Just between both of you. It's face to face, not Facebook to Facebook. Never settle a dispute or conflict on a Facebook post or over on a social media. No, we live in an age whereby we are just trigger happy. We just put all our thoughts, unfiltered thoughts, on the Facebook, on our Instagram. This is not how we should settle our differences or handle our conflict. It's very important that we do it face to face. Now, thirdly, the Bible asks us to do it, to listen attentively. Now, thirdly, the Bible tells us to listen attentively. Now, you know the scripture, it says that in James chapter 1, verse 19, it says, "My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." We must be quick to listen. What does it mean? It means that we have to bite our tongue and then we must listen attentively. Not listen to come back on the other person, not listen to see there's any loophole in the argument, but to really listen to your spouse, to your children, to really listen to your co-workers. What is the issue at hand here? Listen to their heart. Listen attentively. And if anything, at least they know that you care because you choose to listen. And fourthly, the Bible asks us to forgive. To forgive. Now, Colossians chapter 3, verse 13, it says this. In Colossians 3:13, it says, "Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another." It's so important that we release forgiveness to the party that has offended you. It doesn't matter whether you are in the right. It's so important for you to release forgiveness. Even if the other person or the other party insists they have done the right thing. even if the other party insists that they have done you no wrong. It's so important for you to forgive. I know it's very difficult when the other person insists on what they have done is right, but yet it is so offensive to you. Yet they have hurt you so much. And that is the point whereby you have to surrender to the Lord and you forgive the other person. Because if you don't, bitterness will start to take root in your heart. And very soon, it will start consuming you. Unforgiveness will then turn to anger. Anger will then turn to bitterness, so on and so forth. Sooner than you thought, you will then consume your entire being. That's why it's so important for us to forgive. And last but not least, we then have to bless the other person. You know, in Luke chapter 6 verse 28, it says, "Bless those who curse you and pray for those who mistreat you." Wow, this is a very powerful principle. God is not asking us to be a walkover. God is not asking us to be a doormat. But in there actually is a blessing of God. He said when you have the power, the ability to bless those who curse you and bless those who mistreat you, you are saying that I am a child of God. I myself, I can't do it, not in my own strength, but with the empowerment of God. With the love of God that I've experienced, you are able to release those who even mistreat you. And these are the very important 5 principles in how we should resolve conflict in a biblical manner. And now, I want to actually go and talk about interpersonal conflict styles. Now, in the next section, I want you to reflect on your own natural tendency, which of these operational styles you may need to acquire. Now, I'm going to use different animals. There are 5 different styles of managing conflict, and each of us, we actually default into one style. Now, as I go through this, using 5 different animals to talk about each different style, I want to start reflect and thinking about it. Now, I want to say I'm not a wildlife expert, nor am I a zoologist. So all these animals is just symbolic, all right? Now, first is the bull style. Bull style of managing conflict is that, number 1, you like to force your way. You force your way, and then you say it's either my way or the highway. And very often, the posture is I win, you lose. And why waste time on discussion and collaboration when the solution is just let's get it done? So people operational using this style are often very forceful. Is that you? Are you a bull style? Or perhaps you are a turtle. A turtle operational style is that if there is a conflict, you avoid. You choose to avoid. Because you don't see a way out, the best solution to conflict is to get yourself out of the situation. You want to ignore the situation, ignore the conflict, and leave the conflict environment. And very often, people operating on turtle operational styles will just avoid. And when the situation arises, they will just shut down. They don't want to talk about it. Most likely, they will just walk away. Now, can you imagine a bull style people and a turtle style people working together or in a marriage? You see, a bull style people is that if they have an issue, they want to confront it immediately and they want to do it their way. But a turtle style is that they want to avoid the situation. Imagine one wants to deal with it, the other wants to avoid it. What's going to happen? Explosion is what's going to happen. The bull person will say that, why aren't you want to confront this issue? The turtle will say that, I don't want to confront because you are angry. You look angry, I don't talk to you. So he walked away, and that would make the bull even angrier. And guess what? The bull will then accuse the turtle of, you are a coward. You are a coward. That's why you don't want to face the situation. You see, when we do not understand how each other operate, we then start labeling each other. We start calling each other names, which is not helpful at all. That's the reason why it's so important for us to understand each other's style. So that by knowing that that is our natural tendency, we can then remove ourselves. And then we then look at the situation and say, hey, perhaps this situation is actually best to avoid it. Now, the third operational style is what I call a fox style. Fox style is that when there's conflict, they will tend to compromise. We meet at a halfway mark. You win some, I win some. You lose some, I lose some. Now maybe if you're all prepared to give a little, we perhaps can find a way to get enough of what we need. Are you a fox style? The fourth is the koala style. Koala style is very accommodating, very supporting. If the conflict arises, most likely than not, they will support you. They don't mind losing themselves, but letting you win. It's an I lose, you win situation. Because for them, staying connected is actually more important than being in conflict. They're rather living in a harmonious situation than insisting that they are right. And they focus more on relationship rather than the issues. That's the reason why they do not like to be in a conflict. If they are prepared to back down and to support you, they're prepared to back down. Are you koala style? Perhaps you are what we call an owl style. An owl style is those that are very collaborative. They will think of a way whereby both parties will win. It's an I win and you win situation. We need to take time and put some energy into working this out so that we find a creative solution where we both get what we need. Now the next slide, as you can see. Now from this chart, you can see that bull is concerned about the issue but not the relationship. And the direct opposite is koala. They are not that concerned about the issue, but they are very concerned about the relationship. Now if you look at the turtle do not concern about themselves with the issue, nor with the relationship. And that is just different way of operating. Now the question I have for you is, you can just pause a little bit. You ask yourself this question: what is your style? What is your default operating style? And number two, what do you think is Jesus' style of managing conflict? And which conflict style is the best way to resolve conflict? If you want, you can take a short pause on this video and then you think about this. Now the truth of the matter is that Jesus has all the styles. Jesus flipped the table over in the temple court. When he was so angry, immediately he had to act on it. You can say that Jesus is operating on a bull style. But at the same time, you also can say that Jesus also operating on a koala style. Remember in the Garden of Gethsemane, he said that it's not my will, but your will be done. Although he was conflicted inside. He didn't want to go through that suffering. He didn't want to go through that pain. He's cried to Father. But yet, he submit himself to the will of the Father. You can see that Jesus is turtle style as well. What do you mean Jesus is a turtle? Have you read in the scriptures whereby when the conflict arises, he will then withdraw himself from the crowd. He will avoid the crowd and then he will spend time with the Lord. The truth is, Jesus is actually operating in different style. The question then is, when is the best time to use different conflict management style? The question then is, when is the best time to use different conflict style? Now, bull style is best when you use it infrequently. You can't use it very often. Because if you use it very often, you will have no friends very soon. You'll be called very manipulative, very pushy, very forceful. You can't always use bull style. You can only use it, and it's best when you use it in emergencies. You use it to protect rights, to exercise justice. So law enforcement usually is very bull style. Or when compliance can be monitored, or when all other means have failed and action must be done, or when an unpopular but necessary course of action must be followed. So there is a place and time for bull style, especially in an emergency. Imagine there's a fire. You wouldn't want a turtle to be in charge, do you? You wouldn't want an owl to be in charge with you during a fire time, during emergency time. And turtle style is best when the issue is quite unimportant, or the cost of working it through is higher than the value gained. One of the best places to practice turtle style is in the context of a family environment, in a relationship or in a marriage. There are certain things it's just not worth arguing over. I've learned this in a hard way in my own relationship with my wife. I'll not go into detail, but there are certain things you and I know that it's just not worth fighting for. Or when the situation is highly volatile and the people need to cool down before dealing with a conflict, that is the best time to do turtle style. Let's not talk about it. Let's just cool down. Let's just delay or postpone the issue first. When people are highly fragile, when space is needed, or where conflict topics or issues might need to be avoided or ignored, we need to be together with others for another reason but are unable to resolve the conflict. So there is a time and space for turtle styles too. How about fox style? Fox style is best when time is short and the outcome is required, or when trust is not complete, or where a compromise outcome is workable and each party has something to give and something to gain, or where parties are able to respond to reason and rational discussion. Many of times in a commercial conflict, a fox style negotiations or compromise is good. You do not want to go on an all-out war, so you compromise. You win some, you lose some. And the important thing is that everyone is able to walk away and able to move on. That's why having a compromise is so important in our relationships. How about koala style? The koala style is best when the issue is not really yours or it's not high on your personal agenda. It's okay to just support the other person, even if you may not agree, but for the sake of relationship and for the sake of unity, you just support it. You just accommodate. We don't have to win all the time. And especially when the relationship is long-term. And this style is particularly helpful and useful in a church context, in a family context, and also in a close friendship relational context. And it's so important that all of us, that we humble ourselves and that we submit ourselves to one another, particularly when in a close relationship. And especially when the tension is not a direct result of the conflict and is related to other factors in a person's life. See, this is where as close friend, or as a spouse, or as parents, or as siblings, you will know that sometimes a person overreact is because the person is not doing well. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to Pastor Ken and I overreacted a little bit, and Pastor Ken there actually stopped me. He said, you know, Kenny, are you tired? Because I realized that when you are tired, you tend to overreact a bit. You know, that is what we call a loving friend, a loving advice. You see, Pastor Ken called out to me, and he's not concerned about what I said, but he's actually more concerned about my personal life. He said, Kenny, are you tired? Do you need a break? Perhaps you need a couple of days off. You see, that's what close friends do. That's what a loving brother would do. They dare to call you out because they are concerned for you. They are not concerned about winning the argument or winning the issue, or even if you chew off their head. But no, they are willing to take risk and say, hey, perhaps you need to rest. Perhaps you need to take a couple of days off. You see, this is what a loving brother would do. That's why when someone overreacted or someone say the things you know they shouldn't be saying, sometimes you have to ask the question. Try to dig a bit deeper. Hear and listen to their heart. Particularly in the marriage context, in the family context, in people that work closely with you, it is so important that we're able to really listen to them, listen to their heart, because perhaps somewhere in there that they are hurting, and that's the reason why they are overreacting. Now, last but not least is the owl style. Now, owl style is best when the stakes are high and the issue is complex. Now, certainly during an emergency, like a fire, you wouldn't want to owl and say, okay, let's think what we should do. No, you're the bull in charge. You say, run! Head straight for the door, just run. But there are situations where it's so complicated, it requires time to work out a solution. Like for example, in a business environment, whereby if, for example, if you want to make a multi-million-dollar investment, you need to justify, and that's why you will put our heads together. You work out what is the best way of moving forward. Or for example, if the church were to move to a bigger premise, or there are key decisions to be made, and you then need time. Anything that requires time, anything that is complicated and complex, it is best to use our style to resolve the issue. Such when there's time, energy, and willingness available to work together constructively, when relationships are important, that's the reason why you put our heads together, the wise heads, people that have the best interests of the organization, or best interests of the parties involved, best interest in all the relationships, and they are the one that we can think and to chew over and to discuss what is the best way moving forward. Each of these conflict styles will help us to address different conflict situations. And most important of all, I want to leave this verse to you in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13. It says, "And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love." The Bible says that it has to be done out of love. You see, people can detect if you are coming from a place of personal agenda, or they can detect whether this is from a place of love. Now I pray that in this sermon you learn how to deal with conflict. At the same time, can identify your conflict styles, your conflict operational styles, and the people around you. So from then, you will know how to deal with conflict. Next week, more specifically, we're going to talk about family relationships. I'll talk about what builds relationship and what destroys relationship in a family. So I hope to see you again next week, and I pray that you'll be blessed in this message. And if you find that there are some friends of you that can be benefited from this sermon, please feel free to forward the link to them, and I pray that God's word will build them up, will equip them, and that we can continue to walk in the grace of God. Thank you, and God bless you. Take care.